Hey, if you clicked on a video with this topic, it's possible that you're about to get some life-changing information. So whatever you do, don't click off of this video. You're going to want to see this. Okay, let's go.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So we're talking about a really private topic here. So I'm going to try not to say diarrhea too loud in case you're like in a coffee shop or something. But you're probably not in a coffee shop. You're probably in your room with the door closed and your spouse is doing the dishes. And if you cook dinner, they should be doing the dishes. Right? I don't get that. Look at all the stuff I just made for you. You clean it. If you're dealing with chronic loose stool issues, it's really important that you look to find the underlying cause of the problem. You don't just want to use a diarrhea remedy because remedies don't work. The problem with remedies is that the remedy that works for one person could make another person with a different underlying cause for their chronic loose stools, it could make them much worse. So you really want to try to look at your physiology and figure out what the underlying cause of the problem is and work on that to correct the loose stool issue. So in this video, I'm going to explain the 4 most common underlying cause for diarrhea problems, and then at the end we'll talk a little bit about how you can figure out which one of these issues is most likely the problem for you and how to work on it. So the first underlying cause they're going to talk about is poor bile flow. And in my opinion, this is the most common cause of chronic diarrhea problems. So let me explain how this works. When we eat something, our stomach makes hydrochloric acid. And this acid starts to break down the food. This is how we begin the breakdown process, is this acidification of the food. Now, the stomach was meant to hold this acid. It has a mucus barrier that protects the stomach and it can handle these acids. But the intestinal tract is not meant to hold these acids. So when the food that we eat becomes acidified, it'll start to move out of the stomach into the duodenum, which is the first 10 inches of the small intestine. Now, when it does that, since the small intestine can't handle that acid product, what happens is the gallbladder will drop bile down onto this acid product leaving the stomach. Now, the bile is very alkaline. So when this alkaline substance meets this acid product leaving the stomach, it creates like a sizzle. And this sizzle is what we're living off of. This is what allows us to break the food down and pull all the nutrients out of that food. But on top of that, the bile is neutralizing the acids that are leaving the stomach. So now this product, this bolus, this food, these nutrients, all this stuff that we're going to assimilate, it's not so acidic anymore because the bile neutralized it. Now, for many reasons, bile may become too thick and sticky, so it doesn't flow correctly. So if the acid product is leaving the stomach and the body's getting the signal to drop this, bile down from the gallbladder, but it's not dropping down because it's not really flowing well, then that becomes a problem. Now the acid product that left the stomach is still acidic and it's moving through the intestinal tract. Well, the problem is that these acids are made to break down proteins. Well, guess what your intestinal tract is made out of? Yeah, it's protein. So the body doesn't want that. The body doesn't want this acid breaking down your intestinal tract and leaking cheeseburger all over into your guts. That's not a beneficial situation. So what the body does is it will draw all the water that's available to this intestinal tract to kind of cool it off and to kind of cool those acids off, and then it'll rush it out the back door. It'll be like, get this out of here before it burns a hole in us. And it comes shooting out the back door and it lifts us off the toilet like a rocket, and it's not such a great situation. Now, this issue is really common because the gallbladder is made to concentrate the bile so that it's more effective. And so if that bile is not flowing on a regular basis, it continues to concentrate and concentrate more and more until it turns into stones. Now we have gallstones and somebody yanks out our gallbladder. So this is really common because there's a lot of issues that can thicken up the bile so it doesn't flow as well. There's a lot of processed foods and grains have the ability to thicken up our bile. A lot of the, if someone's estrogen is really high, and there's a lot of, birth control and other medications and things that can really elevate estrogen levels, and then that seems to have the ability to thicken up the bile so it doesn't flow as well. There's an imbalance at the cellular level called the catabolic imbalance that has the ability to thicken this up. So this can be a big problem, and it's a problem for a lot of people. And it becomes such a problem that a lot of people lose their gallbladder, and now they don't have a place to store this bile that's supposed to neutralize the acid product that was leaving the stomach. So that can be a problem. And if you've lost your gallbladder, don't feel like this situation is hopeless, we teach people in our free 4-week digestion course how if you've lost your gallbladder that you can use ox bile to kind of replace that situation. And that's just for people who've lost their gallbladder. But if your bile is too thick and it's not flowing correctly, there's steps you can take to kind of thin that out and help it flow better. One way we can do this is by doing coffee suppositories or a coffee enema. And unfortunately, drinking coffee does not do the same thing. It's got to go up the back door. Not everybody's a fan of putting coffee stuff up the back door. Another easier way is that we have a supplement we use called Beet Flow that helps to thin the bile, and it helps that flow a little bit better. And I'll put the link to where you can find that in the description below the video. But the first thing you want to do is you want to figure out, is the bile flow a problem for you? So in our free course, we walk you through how to look at that and figure out if bile might be too thick and it's not flowing great, and then the steps you can take to thin that out. So I'll be sure to put the link to our free 4-week digestion course below in the description so you can register and get that information for free. Now, the next common underlying cause for diarrhea that I want to talk about is that catabolic imbalance that I just mentioned. So how this works is at the cellular level, our body is always either in a catabolic state or an anabolic state. Now, during the day, the body should be in a catabolic state because this is where the body is better at producing energy and keeping us going all day. And it also breaks down tissue and gets rid of waste and all this junk so the body can rebuild. And then at night, we're supposed to move into this anabolic state where we rest and we rebuild and repair, and the body does all of those functions. So both states are great. You can see that both of them are really necessary. But the problem is some people will get stuck leaning too far in one direction, or they'll stay stuck in one side of that imbalance most of the time. Now, this can be a really big problem with your stool because when you're in the more anabolic state, the body sends more of our water through the kidneys. And in the catabolic state, the body sends more of our water through the bowels. So if a person is stuck in this catabolic state most of the time, the body is sending most of the water through our bowels. And that's going to loosen up the bowels and make them a lot looser and more frequent and all those kinds of problems. So we mentioned before that this catabolic state has the ability to thicken up the bile so it doesn't flow as well. So that's one possible problem for a chronic diarrhea issue. But even beyond that, even if your bile is flowing okay, an overly catabolic state can cause the body to send too much water to the bowels, and that's going to loosen it up and create a chronic diarrhea problem. So if you find that you have a catabolic imbalance, you can correct that through food choices and supplement choices, and you can correct that imbalance, and not only can it correct loose stool issues, it can also help you sleep better and repair and rebuild tissues and all those things like the body's supposed to do. So that 4-week course that I talked about, we teach you how to look at your own physiology with simple self-tests that you can do at home with stuff you can pick up at a pharmacy or health food store. And you can kind of figure out, am I leaning too far on this catabolic side? And then you'll know if that's something that you need to correct or not. So if you're hearing things here that really seem like, oh wow, this really makes sense, this could be a really helpful thing, be sure you click on the like and subscribe button, because that tells YouTube to share this video with more people, and you could help other people find the answers they've been looking for as well. Now, for the next possible underlying cause, I want you to understand that there's a lot of fancy names out there for the chronic diarrhea issues that people deal with. And a lot of these labels that people are given, it kind of has inflammation is blamed for the problem. And the reality is that inflammation is a response from the body to try to fix a problem. It's trying to fix a situation with this inflammation. The inflammation itself is not the underlying cause of the problem. There's something creating that inflammation. Does that make sense? The body doesn't just decide, hey, I'm going to get inflamed. There's something causing that, and then the body is responding to try to correct that problem, and the response is the inflammation. One of the possible causes of this inflammation is the stomach acid that we just talked about. Now, if somebody poured battery acid on their hand, that's probably not going to go well. Like, that's probably going to create some inflammation, right? Well, battery acid has a pH of 0.7. Well, stomach acid has a pH of 0.8. That's pretty much just as acidic. So if battery acid is going to create inflammation on our skin, doesn't it make sense that stomach acid that was not neutralized by proper bile flow could also create inflammation in our intestinal tract? Our intestinal tract is a lot more sensitive than our stomach, so of course that makes sense that it could create a problem. But there's a wide variety of other possible things that could create inflammation as well. It could even be an invader or some type of infection, whether a parasite, bacterial, viral, some kind of issue like that, that the body is viewing as an invader, and it's kind of wanting to rush it through the system to get it out the back door so it doesn't take over the body. Like, we know if we went and drank the tap water in Mexico, that butt soup is going to show up. That's just, everybody knows that, because the tap water has these infections that are easy to get into the body, and then the body wants to rush that out the back door. Well, the reality is that tap water in Mexico is not the only place that you can get an infection. There, you can get them anywhere. And a lot of these infections are very difficult to fully eradicate. And a lot of them are antibiotic resistant, and there's a lot of difficulty in trying to totally get rid of something like that, especially when it's in the gut. So this is a really common problem, and a lot of times it's just something else the body is trying to rush out of the system. On a similar note, the fourth possible underlying cause for chronic diarrhea problems that I want to cover here are food sensitivity issues or food intolerance problems. So the short answer to this is basically we need both sides of our digestion working. We need the stomach acid producing enough acid, and we need bile flowing correctly so it can neutralize that acid. That's where we get that sizzle, where we can fully break our food apart and pull all the nutrients out. So if either of those sides of digestion are not working for any reason, then we don't get that sizzle. We can't fully break that food down into elemental nutrients that the body recognizes and can use. So your body can't use a salami sandwich. It doesn't recognize a salami sandwich as something that is useful to it. So if the food is not broken down into vitamins and minerals and amino acids and fats that the body can utilize, then it still has this identity. It's still like, hey, I'm a salami sandwich. So when a salami sandwich makes it into the bloodstream, because it's not broken down properly and it can leak through the intestinal tract, then the body views that as an invader. And now every time you eat a salami sandwich, the immune system comes down hard and it attacks this invader. So one of the steps that it can take is it can just rush it out the back door as fast as it can to get this invader out of the system. So this is a really big problem, and it's really common. Now, understanding this whole how to figure out what foods are a problem and how to correct the issue is a little more complicated than we can cover here. So I pulled an entire chapter out of my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, and it's a chapter that explains how food and sensitivities work and the steps that you can take to figure out which foods are causing trouble and how to remove them. So I'm going to put the link below in the description to that whole chapter that I just posted on my site so anybody can access it. So just go through that and you'll be able to figure out if there's some foods that might be causing some trouble for you. Now, there are other possible causes for chronic diarrhea problems that are a little more rare, but for most people, at least one of these or more of these factors are going to be contributing to the problem. So it's really about just figuring out which one of these issues is the most likely the problem for you, and then taking the steps to improve it. So we'll walk you through how to look at your unique bioindividuality in that free 4-week digestion course, and you'll be able to figure out which one of these common underlying causes is most likely contributing to your loose stool issues. It may also help to watch our Digestive Troubles Explained video, and that may give you a little more insights too. So jump over and watch that, and then you can register for the free digestion course and figure out the answers that are right for you and your unique body chemistry. I can't wait to hear about your results.